Marvel has a big week as Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness hits theaters and the Moon Knight series concludes as Justin Lin leaves Fast and Furious 10, Cobra Kai Season 5 gets a new trailer, and we finally get a sign of life with regards to Avatar 2. I'm Joe Acierno.
And I'm Darius Delsoin. This is Cinema Unchained.
All right, folks, welcome to the one and only Cinema Unchained podcast. Now, I'm not going to lie, with everything that went on this past week, it's weeks like this that I love having a podcast that we talk about like movies and, TV and everything entertainment related and stuff like that, because so much happened this week. We've got a fantastic episode planned for you all today. Now, before we get into the trailer for Avatar 2, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications for more fun, honest, and engaging talks about film, TV, and other motion picture headlines, whether you're on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, before we give our series review of Marvel's Moon Knight, the trailer for the long-awaited Avatar sequel was shown to public audiences before Doctor Strange 2 in theaters after debuting at CinemaCon about a week ago. When I read online that the trailer for Avatar 2 was going to debut, or at least be shown in theaters before Doctor Strange 2, I said to everybody that I went to the movies with when we went to see Doctor Strange 2, like, okay, guys, we have to be on time. We have to be on time for the previews. Like, Avatar 2 is supposed to be coming on. And as I'm sitting in the theater, like, waiting for the trailers, right? Like, I'm seeing Minions 2. I'm seeing DC League of Super Pets. I'm seeing Top Gun Maverick. And I'm like, all right, come on, what's going on? When's Avatar going to come on? Then I finally see 20th Century Studios, like that little opening logo, that little opening, that they have there. And then Lightstorm Entertainment after that. I'm like, oh shit, this is it. This is it. And I was just blown away by this trailer. I was absolutely blown away. There were just so many questions that I have. I can't wait to see where they take this. And like I said, I'm floored. I'm honestly floored. I just cannot wait. Cannot wait.
Yeah, this was a nice teaser, a nice wake up to be like, no, it's finally here.
Yep.
it's like finally coming.
Yep.
You don't need to wait. So, and just from the trailer alone, again, for me, I loved the first Avatar. Absolutely loved it. And as I was watching the trailer, I looked over to my friend. I was like, dude, I'm not seeing this movie with you. I'm seeing this with my dad. Like, my dad and I, big sci-fi. This is a big movie for us. So one of the things I noticed, even for Avatar 2, was, and again, Avatar is that movie where I remember it so vividly in my head that I can already tell that there is a drastic CG change and evolution from the first one to this one. And yes, technology has caught up and etc. But I think the amount of work and effort that I think James Cameron really went into this compared to various other movies that have done CG characters, this one honestly blew me away. And I gotta say, the water.
Yep.
Oh, Lord.
The Way of the Water. The Way of the Water. That's it. That's the official title for the Avatar sequel, Avatar, The Way of the Water. And touching upon what you said about the first Avatar film, I remember it was such a massive deal when it came out in 2009. It was the highest grossing movie of all time until Avengers Endgame. Then, it became the highest grossing movie of all time again with the re-release, that they just put out there, I guess, to compete with the Avengers movies. Don't know if you really want to count that, but whatever. And Avatar is weird. Like, it's one of those movies whose reputation I kind of feel like has faltered a tiny bit over the years, but I still love it. I feel like it's the quintessential James Cameron film. It's transportive, it's immersive, and it's epic. And it's funny, I was just talking about this with my brother a few minutes ago because, he's not as crazy about the Avatar movie as I am. And the main thing that I cited for like why I love this movie so much is that I feel like there are so many films that like do the whole big budget blockbuster heavy special effects thing, right? And that's one of the things that my brother cited that like, okay, outside of the visual effects, like there wasn't really so much that stood out to him. But I'm like, so many of those other films that try to do this with the, big special effects and visual effects, they don't have that same immersive quality like Avatar does. Like Avatar, I felt like it was a very transportive, immersive, and epic film. Like it was just something on like such a massive scale, and I felt like I was there, and it just made me so much more invested than I would with your typical blockbuster film. And Avatar 2, based on this trailer, is going to be no different from that. This footage that they showed us is just visually, it's just stunning. And the music that was playing throughout just gave me the sense of wonder and awe. I wanted to see more. I did not want this trailer to end.
Yeah, like a part of me was like, I'm happy it ended because it's like we know it's coming. Like you didn't need to show too much, and I think James Cameron knows he doesn't need to show too much either.
Yep.
And again, one of the other things, again, you see the humans are back. They're with avatars with guns again. It looks like Jake has a family.
Yep, Jake has a family.
It's going to be interesting, and I'm personally really excited for the Avatar trailer, for Avatar 2 Way of the Water. I'm excited for the next Avatar and the next one and the next one. Actually, no, I can't really say that. But I am intrigued to see how this is going to be, because it's really almost a reintroduction. It's been a long time, and it's a good stepping stone for as well as the other sequels that are planned to come out too.
Yeah. And just touching upon what you said before, as far as like, you think Jake Sully has a family now. This is the official synopsis from 20th Century Studios. Quote, set more than a decade after the events of the first film, Avatar: The Way of the Water begins to tell the story of the Sully family, the trouble that follows them, the lengths they go to keep each other safe, the battles they fight to stay alive, and the tragedies they endure, end quote. So I think that pretty much confirms that he's got a family now, and they're facing a whole bunch of new challenges together. So I'm just super pumped for this movie all around. I can't wait to see the directions that they take this in. And I'm seeing this opening weekend in IMAX. Like we did with Dune, like we did with the Batman. I will drive out to Stony Brook, all the way out to Stony Brook, to see this in IMAX if I have to.
Yep, I'm definitely seeing it. I was definitely seeing this in the city. So.
Yeah. So, all right, folks, what did you think of if you actually got a chance to see the trailer for Avatar 2? It's supposed to go online, I want to say, about a week from this past Friday, so give it another few days or so, and it should be online, and it should be a bit more accessible. But for those of you who did get a chance to watch this, what do you think? Is it too long after the first Avatar film for you to really care as much? Like, even though it'll be 13 years from the first movie coming out, like, are you still invested? Like, are you still excited? Do you still care? Leave your thoughts wherever it is that you can. All right, now before we talk about the latest developments surrounding Fast and Furious 10, Moon Knight, Marvel's Moon Knight concluded after 6 episodes this past Wednesday, and it follows a man with a split personality as he's granted the powers of an Egyptian god and must stop a malevolent prophet from unleashing an even more malevolent god on the world. And not gonna lie, this, in my opinion, is the best Marvel Cinematic Universe series to date. For me, it was Hawkeye until this series came along. I thought this show was terrific. I felt like it went into directions and emotional depths that most Marvel movies or really TV shows like wouldn't go to. And I thought it just did everything so well.
Yeah, I personally, overall, I think I loved Moon Knight. This was, again, a show I was very ecstatic for from the MCU. Every other show for me was kind of, it's like I liked it, good, love, but there hasn't been a show where I felt like I truly loved it, and Moon Knight is the one I truly loved it. I loved how we got to see really how Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, they constantly butt heads throughout the show. I loved seeing how the Egyptian gods were honestly represented. I think that was just beautifully well done, because we don't really see a lot of Egyptian gods representation, unfortunately. It's always been Norse or Greek, which is great. Those are great mythologies. I'm not, hating on them. I love those mythologies, but Egyptian has always been one of my favorites personally. And so seeing how they really took to the text of how some of these gods looked and everything, such as Tawatet and, so many of these gods, or at least 3 of them, the 3 big ones, and how they looked very animalistic and everything. I absolutely loved it. But more importantly, I loved the mental battle that Stephen Grant and Mark Spector had throughout the show. I love this psychological nature of how they were butting heads. They couldn't see eye to eye. There's always some sort of hatred and pity and etc. But then when you get to a certain episode, and I think to me this episode 5 was like my favorite episode across all of the MCU shows, if not probably some Marvel television shows, because it was so amazing, and I think they utilize Egyptian even mythology to its core and root in nature of how Mark Spector should deal with his other personality, Stephen Grant, and how Stephen Grant should deal with Mark Spector, and seeing how all of this transfolded, and seeing really how, and unfortunately, and this is something I get from the God of War and even other mythologies, sometimes the gods are not always pure of heart. They're not good. And Khonshu has taken this. To me, this was more like Moon Knight. That Mark Spector became Moon Knight because of a bit of who Khonshu was and how he really manipulated and took this broken man and turned him into something and tried to almost solidify his being a ruthless mercenary and killer, and be like, like, this is why you're special. This is what, like, forget everything else. And, Khonshu is just, oh man, I absolutely love what they did with Khonshu. I love what they did with, again, to me, this show was just amazing. And I liked one of the messages of really, when it comes to personality disorders and mental illness, is that it shouldn't be something you fear. It is a part of you. It is not a curse, and you should accept that. It's unfortunate, but it is a part of you. What makes you you, and what makes you special in that moment. And again, this show just knocked it out of the water from episode 1 all the way to episode 5. Finale was a bit underwhelming. I've been noticing finales of these MCU shows have been underwhelming. But overall, I think Moon Knight as a series, what it was doing, a psychological character study of Mark Spector, not just him. Again, he has different personalities. Was just so well done that I'm just floored by the show.
Yeah, and again, taking off of what you said as far as, like, mental illness and everything like that, the show shows, a lot of that has to do with coming to terms with, abuse and grief and everything like that. It's symbolic of the things that we do to cope and what happens when we don't learn how to cope with certain things that have happened to us. The twists and how Mark and Steven come to terms with certain things are both unpredictable, they're poignant, and they're satisfying. And again, this goes back to what I said before as far as, like, this show going into certain emotional and mental territories that most MCU entries don't. And I really appreciated that in this show. I thought it did it all very, very well. And as far as the finale, honestly, I did like the finale. I liked the finale. It was satisfying. And even the post-credit scene after the final episode, I'm like, oh shit. Because, like, there was one question that I had with, certain blackouts that the character has. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense now. And even then, too, they're like how certain parts with the characters of Mark Spector and Stephen Grant end off. I'm like, oh, like, what's going to happen with Moon Knight now? So it's the only thing that we're going to see. And I'm like, oh, never mind. This post-credit scene says otherwise. We're not done with him yet. And I want to see the role that Moon Knight plays in future MCU entries. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, like, I remember when I was going up to seeing the finale, and I was a bit late because I watched 4, 5, and 6 all in one night. It was a good piece of night.
I watched 5 and 6 this morning.
So I remember after 6 came out, I heard there was a post-credit scene, and it got me wondering. I was like, I have a feeling I know what it is. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, yep, I was right. My speculation was right. And this has me excited. Mm-hmm. But yeah, overall, I think Moon Knight, absolutely loved it, absolutely floored. I like the costume design change, especially considering from the comics. I like how it's more of an Egyptian garb, mummified look. Again, I think how the Egyptian gods were represented, I think for what they were able to do in season 1, I liked. I wish they did a bit more, but again, I think the biggest one of what they were actually able to do was really episode 5. That threw me for a loop. I was like, wow, this is that? Oh my god, I love how it's being done. And overall, this show is just a solid show. It's one of the best MCU shows I think Marvel has put out, and I think Marvel should really take a look at why this was so good in a sense of how it also wasn't connected, or it didn't rely too much on the connective tissue to the greater MCU, which I think benefited this show greatly as well, compared to, Hawkeye, all the other shows, really. So
yeah, this felt more of its own element than most things that we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But at the same time, again, considering that it's a Marvel Cinematic Universe, we know that it's going to be involved in some other way later down the line. Mm-hmm. But I like how they took the time and effort to develop this enough so that way it feels so much more like its own thing, that it's an even better piece of the puzzle in later entries when it does eventually interact with other characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and other IPOs, as you usually put it. So again, all in all, terrific show. Again, among the best, if not the best, Marvel Cinematic Universe series that are out there at the moment. For everybody, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch this or at least finish this show, highly recommend that you do, especially if you're an MCU fan. You will love this. So for everyone who did get a chance to actually watch this series, leave your thoughts wherever it is that you can. All right, now moving forward, according to IndieWire, Fast 10 director Justin Lin has exited the project as director days before the production began. Lin insisted that the exit was on good terms, but another quote from The Hollywood Reporter cited a, quote, major disagreement, end quote, with franchise star Vin Diesel. And just a little bit more of a background, Justin Lin, Vin Diesel, and two executives from Universal met to discuss Diesel's notes on the script. Universal sent a writer to London to, quote, polish dialogue, which the thought of that effort being made is hilarious for a Fast and Furious movie. And an insider had told the outlet that Lin, he had just had enough and that the film wasn't worth his mental health. And now this just goes to show the influence that Vin Diesel has on this franchise. This is not the first time Diesel has butted heads with someone else making these movies. Of course, everyone remembers the infamous feud with him and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Vin Diesel invited him on social media to rejoin the franchise, and The Rock said no. And honestly, good on him, because, there have been a lot of reports as far as like Vin Diesel being kind of a pain in the ass to work with. He's a, quote, personality to be reckoned with. He's the, quote, dominant force on set, which is kind of odd because, honestly, the director should be the dominant force on set. But what do I know? Maybe I'm a little bit biased in that department. So Lin and Universal have reached an agreement as far as to keep him on as at least a producer.
Yeah, this news was interesting because I remember, he also came back for the previous movie as well, and we all know how that came out. But still, it's unfortunate that it happened. I can see why, because at the same time, we talked about this before. The Rock has stated before that he wasn't too keen on how Vin Diesel and maybe even others, presented themselves. He felt that they were very unprofessional. They didn't have a strong work ethic. And seeing that this news comes out, it kind of aligns with what The Rock was saying. And again, The Rock is a powerhouse in the industry as a whole in general.
Yep.
He's I'm not saying you have to agree with him, like him, or anything like that, but he is a powerhouse. In any movie he's attached to, a lot of people will go see it. I don't know about League of Super Pets, but I'm just saying. Some of the news that's coming out about Vin Diesel apparently is that he forgets his line, he's out of shape, and I'm sorry, you're out of shape for a Fast and Furious movie?
Yeah, that's not good. Like the muscles are like one of the main things that people go to watch these movies for. And again, I'm not saying I'm, a bodybuilder myself. I'm staggering 5'9", 160. So I'm not going to star in a Fast and Furious movie anytime soon. But you have to just keep yourself, I don't know if honest is the right word for the role, but you have to keep yourself up to par with the role.
Yep, exactly. And another thing I question about this is, how many times has this happened before when it wasn't The Rock's perspective, but maybe a director's perspective, like Justin Lin, and now it seemed to be the breaking point. Again, this seemed like now was the breaking point. The fact that he just left and, he was potentially being given $10 to $20 million for this project, he's like, nah, I'm not dealing with this, even for that amount of money. That also, I think, says a lot, and I think it's really disheartening considering this is supposed to be the last movie in the franchise.
Yep.
It's supposed to be. We'll see. But last movie, and you have the director leaving and everything because of what possibly was being reported on Vin Diesel's behavior, which, again, unprofessional. If all of this is true, then it's like, geez, like, Vin Diesel, you need to get a grip of yourself.
Yeah. Like get off your high horse before you get knocked off,
Exactly. So and apparently they have a new director, but again, just this amount of drama that has happened to lead up to this, costing them, a couple extra millions of dollars every day because they didn't have a director. That's a lot of money, and it seems like it's going to be the most expensive Fast and Furious movie too.
Yeah, because think about that with all the problems that are going on with that happened with searching for a new director, how much money they lost there, the cast that's involved too. For Fast and Furious 10, I mean, you have certain big names like Jason Momoa, and it's just, like the price tag is just building up and up and up on these movies. So it just makes me wonder, like, how big is too big? Like, is this movie too big to fail? Like, is this just is this biting off more than it can chew? Like, is this franchise like really starting to, quote, run out, pun intended, run out of gas? And I think at Fast and Furious 10, I don't see how this isn't the last movie. I just don't see that. How can you make a franchise all the way to 10 and just not quit after that? Especially when, since Fast and Furious 9 was a shit show, you can't end at 9 either. You can't. You can't just end at 9 unless you're Star Wars and you do the whole trilogy thing. But, they have to make it to 10. They have to at least make it to 10 and just stop there.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, unfortunate. I can see, different behaviors and news outlets piling up or, just reiterating Vin Diesel's behavior, especially with The Rock statements before. So. Yeah.
So for everyone, do you still care about the Fast and Furious movies at this point in the game? Like I said, we're going on 10 now. If you are still a fan, what do you think of this new development with Justin Lin leaving and everything that seems to be going on with Vin Diesel and the way he seems to handle himself on these movies? Do you still care about these movies at this point? Leave your thoughts wherever it is that you can. All right, now before we talk about the new trailer for Cobra Kai Season 5, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications for more fun, honest, and engaging talks about film, TV, and other motion picture headlines, whether you're on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, now before we review Doctor Strange 2, the newest trailer for Season 5 of Cobra Kai debuted this past week, and it's kind of... It feels weird that we're getting stuff for Season 5 of Cobra Kai. The new season is supposed to debut on Netflix now, according to this trailer, on September 9th. And it's so strange because I feel like we just watched Season 4. We just watched it. And now Season 5 is coming in even less time and even in an even quicker time than Season 4 did after Season 3. And it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like the rate and quality that they pump out these new seasons for is just amazing. It's just impressive beyond words.
Sooner the better. But yeah, overall, I think I'm excited for Season 5. I'm considering how Season 4 ended off with Kreese in jail. His friend betrays him. He kind of takes over, basically, that his entire business and everything. Mm-hmm. And it looks like he's expanded across, Miyagi-Do is under. It's going to be interesting to see how our characters that we've attached ourselves to is going to combat this, considering they don't have their dojos anymore.
Yep.
Considering all this stuff, how are they going to combat this? What new creative ways are the writers and directors and producers implementing into the story to have them still fight them and try to take them out without fighting? And again, it's Cobra Kai. There's supposed to be a lot of fighting. I mean, clearly, in the trailer, we see a lot of fighting anyway. Mm-hmm. But again, I am excited. I'm even more excited to see, it looks like the relationship between Robbie and his father. It looks like they're both going to be coming back to each other at some point, but really with a common goal of getting Miguel back from Mexico, considering, he left at the end of last season to go to Mexico to find his father. So it's going to be interesting to see how that relationship grows, if it does, and the possible relationship between Miguel and Robbie to see if they, shake hands and everything. Mm-hmm. So that's gonna be that's the one I'm really interested on. Robbie and Miguel's relationship going into Season 5, considering, the father just brings his son along, like, you're coming with me to get Miguel.
Yep.
So I'm interested.
Yeah, same here. I can't, again, another season of Cobra Kai that I just can't wait for. And again, one of the things that keeps this show so interesting throughout however many seasons now are the internal and external conflicts with all the characters. It's just amazing. And every time, like, they find new ways to go in interesting directions. And I love how it's weird. Like, I love how they've incorporated, like, all of, like, the original characters from, like, the original Karate Kid movies with the new ones. Like, I feel like they do that very, very well. And even though, like I'm not, like, a diehard fan of the original Karate Kid movies by any means. Like, I'm like, first two are fine. Mm-hmm. They're decent. Third one's fucking terrible. But I like how they bring back Terry Silver from Karate Kid 3 for this. I think his role in this one in Cobra Kai is much better than the role he had in Karate Kid 3. But at the same time, the role he had in Karate Kid 3 is essential for, the presence that he has now in this new series. So I think that's all really interesting. And I'm curious about the role of the antagonist from Karate Kid 2. and now he kind of partners up with Danny LaRusso. I want to see how that goes. That's going to be interesting.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Like I said, I'm excited. I'm curious. And September, can't wait. Sooner rather than later. I like it.
Yep, same here. Every now and then I think, why join a karate dojo when I could just watch Cobra Kai, anytime I want and just save myself all the broken bones and stuff. All right, so now, again, like we mentioned before, the new season of Cobra Kai is set to debut on Netflix on September 9th. For all you guys, are you still... How are you still like a diehard fan of Cobra Kai? Like, are you still very much in the show? 5 seasons in now. Are you looking forward to this next season? Leave your thoughts wherever you can. Okay, and now to cap off the show, we're going to give our review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which debuted in theaters this past weekend, and it follows Dr. Stephen Strange as he casts a spell that disrupts the multiverse, and he and others trained in the mystic arts struggle to repair the damage. And the biggest thing, or really the biggest surprise that I got from this movie was just how ambitious it is. It's ambitious, it juggles a lot, and it juggles it very, very well. And it does all that while moving at a very quick pace. I remember reading online that the pacing had received certain criticisms, but honestly, I love the motion of the story. I loved, it's very strong about the directions and twists that it takes and the pace that it moves at.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think overall, I enjoyed it. I had liked it, but at the same time, the pacing, and again, it's like for me, the pacing felt fast, but it was fast because of what was happening with, how one of the characters was operating and just how quick this person was moving and everything. But overall, I think it kind of lost itself for me, at least, in a way where it just gets a bit bogged down a bit in the second act. The third act, certain conflicts and confrontations, I think just did not line up for me, to the point where it was believable, at least. I will have to give credit. This felt like the Marvel movie that, to me, it felt like 3 different ideas. It felt like Scott Derrickson's idea of what he originally wanted to do. It felt like what Kevin Feige really wanted to do, mixed in with a bit of Sam Raimi horror. And again, when Sam Raimi has the horror aspects in this film, it works. It works really well. And if anything, this is probably the most violent MCU movie they've produced, which again, I enjoy. But there are certain aspects that I just feel as if I think an extra 20 to 30 minutes honestly could have benefited the movie a bit more. And I think there were also certain characters introduced that didn't really hold a relevance to the overall plot, or at least what they were trying to go for, because it just felt like this back and forth of blaming Strange for something, and then they stop, or then they ask him again to do something. But it's like, you just blamed him. Why wouldn't you say this about him? Again, to me, it felt very messy, especially towards the end. America Chavez, I liked her as a character, but again, I don't think she really... It felt like too many ideas to the point where I don't think the multiversal concept for what they were actually going for in the story, even with one of the other characters, that the multiverse I didn't think was actually necessary to progress some of these dynamics and some of the actual plot lines that was also, and even character developments that were established before as well. And that's just me. Again, I liked it, but towards the end, if not the middle and afterwards, I was not feeling this movie at all. It lost my interest. To me, it felt like it lost sight in what it was trying to do and wanting to be. And again, it felt like I can understand, unfortunately, why Scott Derrickson left the project. Again, for me, I would have preferred maybe his original idea of what he was doing, what he wanted to do. But again, it felt like so many ideas were just combating each other that it kind of lost itself overall. And I think the multiverse was cool for them to introduce, but I don't think it really had any big repercussions as I thought it would be later on. It felt like this was almost a small phase of the MCU, but nothing bigger. I don't know. That's just me personally.
I mean, I have to disagree because I feel like what they did with the multiverse, it played 2 roles. Number one, of course, it showed the potential of what else is out there, right? Like what else is out there, the other possibilities that are out there. But also there's a theme in this movie of accepting our own reality. And I loved what they did with that. And the multiverse plays a role in that. And I don't want to give away too much because, I'm not, we're not going to do spoilers with this review. But the multiverse like plays a lesson in teaching, or plays a role in teaching that lesson to certain characters in this movie. And Doctor Strange is one of them. I don't think it's so much of a spoiler to say. Just like coming to terms with like how your life turned out, your life as an individual turned out, because like I'm sure like we could all look at things in our past and just be like, oh, what if, right? What if, right? Pun completely intentional. Like what if this little part in my life went differently, like went in a slightly different direction? Like what could have happened? Like what if? And I feel like no, like it's enticing to always think about that, and it's tempting to get lost in that. But at the end of the day, your reality is your reality. And it doesn't pay to get lost in that, as tempting as it is. And keeping on what I was saying about, just like Doctor Strange, I felt like his character development was heavily influenced by that lesson that the multiverse teaches us. Again, because like there are certain, regrets that he has in the film. Again, not going to touch into this because like I don't want to we're not going to get into spoilers. But I felt like the multiverse played a great role in developing him as a character. And just like him coming to terms with certain things that have gone on in his life. I felt like just like as a character, he was easier to root for this time around. And again, like just his development, I liked what they did. I liked how they furthered his development.
Okay, but yeah, like I said, for me, it wasn't working towards the end. It kind of lost, and certain choices they did as well kind of got me upset a bit. But at the same time, it's like I was trying to understand certain actions or certain choices that some of these characters were making, and to me, it felt like as if they rewrote certain rules of the multiverse, considering another project they did. Like Loki, I think Loki established multiverse and everything, and it felt like they at least had somewhat of an understanding. And then with this one, it kind of felt like it got just a bit lost in its understanding of its own, of what they were trying to go for when it meant the multiverse and when it meant for even accountability to a certain extent. And again, it's like, I'm not saying this was bad. I'm just saying it didn't click with me for some of the explanations with certain characters and their power sets and how this affected one. And I think that it made a bit of plot holes, or less, not necessarily plot holes, but just certain characters that didn't seem as fleshed out as I think it should have when it came to certain actions they were making. But again, I think Elizabeth Olsen, we all know she's in this movie. She was my favorite part of the film. I will say that. She was my favorite part. She was great. And she was amazing. But like I said, it's like I liked it. And I'm not going to tell people don't see it. Go see it. Have a an opinion for yourself. But overall, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I had a good time. I laughed. But there are just certain things that wasn't clicking with me towards the end that I honestly tuned out, and that's just me.
Mm-hmm. And touching upon what you said as far as like the multiverse, there was one thing I will say. As much as I like the lesson that it teaches us, the certain rules with the multiverse like aren't always as clear with the appearances of like characters, if that makes sense. That's a little bit foggy to me, but I still like what they did overall with the multiverse in this film. And Elizabeth Olsen and her character, she is an incredible force. I'll say that. I don't want to give too much away in terms of like her arc and everything like that, but her arc, her motivation for everything, she was absolutely terrific. Wanda Maximoff, absolutely terrific. Everything that she did with this movie, why she does the things that she does, is just absolutely terrific. She was awesome, absolutely awesome. Performances overall, I gotta say, were pretty strong. There were a couple that I wasn't too crazy about. I feel like the actress that played America Chavez, I wasn't too crazy about her. There were other performances in this movie that kind of bugged me. Not gonna lie, but the incorporation of certain other characters, I really enjoyed. Exactly. I really enjoyed that. But But yeah, no, this movie overall was a great time. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. And I think that's in large part, too, due to Sam Raimi. I thought he was, for what they were trying to go for with this film, I thought he was a terrific pick to direct this movie. I really did. Like you said before, or like we said before, this is definitely bloodier and more gruesome than most MCU films, which I felt was welcome. It felt enough, like, like a Doctor Strange movie didn't feel like a total monkey wrench going in this direction. But this new and this really different direction that they went in with this, I'm like, all right, it fits, but it feels like its own thing at the same time. Like the horror elements of this movie and the camera movements both felt very much like Sam Raimi, and I felt like they were both very effective in what they were trying to do. Certain things felt like, a tiny bit campy, but, that's all part of his style. It didn't really bother me so much, but I did notice it. What'd you think of the visuals in this movie?
It's like there's certain scenes again, and I guess this is where I also struggled, was some of the visuals too, where it felt too not just CG-ish, but just it didn't feel as engaging as I thought it would be. And I guess that's also I guess one of my issues with it is that there are certain scenes and certain shots, I can't say where, but when you watch the movie you'll understand where, that I was not too crazy about. And even like there are certain aesthetics I absolutely really enjoyed, I loved, but then other scenes and certain fight scenes, I'm just like the visuals, some of the visual effects, it didn't seem right. It felt very unbaked, as you like to say it quite a few times.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like, it's weird, like certain visuals and certain scenes, like felt, I don't know if unrefined is the right word, I don't know if underdone is the right word. I think distracting is the word that I used when I was talking about this movie with my friends after. And it's weird, like, even though overall I like this Doctor Strange movie much better than the first one, the visuals in the first one and the first Doctor Strange I thought were better than this one.
Yeah, definitely. I think the first one really had its own sense of what it really wanted to do visually, at least. Whereas this one, it definitely jumped around a lot. It definitely served, certain visual aesthetics definitely served its purpose, especially at a later date. But overall, I think, and again, this is where it's like, I like the multiverse. I like the idea of that. But for some reason, it wasn't clicking with me in this movie.
That's fair. And what I will say, everything that this movie does, or everything that this movie did, again, without getting into spoilers, and what it shows us for the future is just another reminder why we keep talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, why we keep anticipating everything that happens. Because I was talking about this on the car ride home with my brother and my future sister-in-law. Like, there are just so many moving parts to this franchise, to the MCU.
Yeah.
There are just all these moving parts, like all these things that are previewed and teased that just keep us hooked. Whether it's, certain characters being introduced, certain, cast members being introduced that just make us feel like, oh my God, like, there's more for us to look forward to. And it's just such a massive, massive accomplishment that this franchise has done. Again, how many Marvel Cinematic Universe movies are there now? Like, we're definitely way past 20 at this point, right? And the fact...
Over 20. I think we're at 24, 25.
Okay.
Probably 25 at this point.
Okay, so, this franchise has as many installments as we have, as you and I have years individually, right? And we're still so invested in this. Like, I remember thinking to myself, like, after Avengers Endgame was done, right? I'm like, all right, like, what's really going to happen in the MCU now? And again, I'm not so much of a comic book fan. I really just watch the movies and the TV shows. That's all I really cared to do. But I was proven wrong by many of the installments that have come out after Endgame in 2019. It's 3 years later, we're still talking about this. There's still so much that we're looking forward to. So again, this is just a massive achievement for everybody that has an active role in bringing this franchise to life.
Yeah, I loved Endgame. I really enjoyed Endgame. I prefer Infinity War, but I liked Endgame. And then after Endgame, for me, it just felt like the MCU reached its peak, and now it's kind of a bit stagnant. And Doctor Strange was the one movie I was really, really excited for, and the fact that I was so disappointed, at least for me, coming out of it, I am not looking forward to the other MCU projects. This movie made me actually a bit worried about some of the other projects in the works.
That's interesting.
That is just me.
I'm not in that boat yet. Well, I do feel like Endgame is the peak of the MCU so far. I feel like, at least with this movie and what they're teasing for later on, I feel
Yeah.
like they're building up to another peak again, to another potential peak that could possibly be on par with Endgame. Again, not 100% sure exactly how they're going to get there, but I do
I have
feel
my
like
theories, but
I
yeah.
do feel like they could get there, and we will have another Avengers Endgame like moment in the future, like we did in 2019.
Yeah.
So for everybody that got a chance to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, what did you think? Do you feel like it took on too much? Do you feel like, it handled everything that it tried to do? Well, leave your thoughts wherever it is that you can. And just like that, that's all we got for you today. Don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications for more fun, honest, and engaging talks about film, TV, and other motion picture headlines, whether you're on YouTube or wherever else you get your podcasts. And tune in next week for our review of Netflix's Senior Year, starring Rebel Wilson. We'll see you then.